we are going to do division using the standard algorithm. One thing that is really important to remember, and sometimes good to write down just to remind you, is the D for divide, M for multiply, S for subtract, and a down arrow for bring it down. And then I like to bring an arrow to repeat if needed. So long division is kind of a process. You basically will divide, multiply, subtract, bring down, and then repeat if needed. When we look at a long division problem, one thing you need to consider is that in this problem, I have 9,465 being divided by 5. That simply means that if I had 9,465 marbles and I wanted to put them into 5 different groups, up here my quotient would tell me how many would be in each group. When I look at this problem, it is also important to understand I pay attention to these place values. It's clear that my quotient, which is your answer, will have at least possibly 4 digits in its answer. And we will come back to that later to look at it more directly. When we start the long division process, it might be helpful to use a sticky note to cover up the other numbers. For example, I just covered up the rest, and so I'm going to start with the D as divide, and I'm going to look at this and I'm going to say, does 5 go into 9? The answer is yes, it does. It goes in 1 time. My next step would be to multiply. 1 times 5 is 5. The next step would be then to subtract. 9 minus 5 is 4. The next step is bring down. So I would need to move my sticky note, and I'm going to move it over. And I'm going to bring down the 4. Notice I drew the arrow. I think it's a really good idea to get into that habit of drawing that arrow. That way, you know that you have brought down every number that needs to be brought down. So I brought down my 4, and now I need to repeat if needed. Okay? It's clear that it needs to be repeated because if I need to bring something down, it does need to be repeated. When we look at this now, I'm asking myself, does 5 go into 44? The answer is yes. It does go into 44. It goes in 8 times. I want you to notice that the 1 is in the thousands place and the 8 is in the hundreds place. Now I move to my next step as multiplying. 8 times 5 is 40. I'm going to subtract. If when multiplying this answer is larger than the other number, we have a problem. There's a good chance that it can go one more time. Now I'm going to go to my next step, subtract. So 44 minus 40, this one's pretty easy. I can do it very easily in my head. 4 minus 0 is 4, and then 4 minus 4 is 0. I'm now to bring it down, so I'm going to slide my sticky note over another time, and I'm going to bring down my 6. Again, notice my arrow, and now I have 46. Back up, repeat if needed. Now I'm going to divide. Does 5 go into 46? The answer is yes. It goes in 9 times. 9 times 5, because my next step is to multiply, is 45. My next step is to subtract. And here again, I have 46 minus 45, which is 1. Bring it down. Is there something to be brought down? And the answer is yes. Again, notice that this arrow is bringing it all the way down, and now I have 15. Repeat if needed. The answer is yes. Notice again that I am going to divide. Does 5 go into 15? The answer is yes. It goes in 3 times. And 3 times 5 is 15. Going to subtract, and that gives me 0, with a 0 as my remainder. So the answer here, if I go back to the original thought that I had 9,465 marbles, and if I divided them into 5 different groups, I would have 1,893 marbles in each group. So that is how you would do a standard algorithm for long division.